Jolly parked in her driveway and initiated the opening sequence for her garage door, which she then entered as usual. However, she discovered that her husband's vehicle was no longer present in the garage. She considered the possibility that he had taken the children out for an evening meal. She reflected on how she often felt as though she was caring for 3 children, not just 2, and smiled at the idea of Jack taking on a greater share of childcare responsibilities. She exited her vehicle and proceeded inside the residence. The exterior lighting had been extinguished, and the interior of the house she shared with her husband and 2 children appeared unusually quiet and still, devoid of the typical illumination and the auditory stimulation of video games emanating from their large screen. She recalled what she had done earlier that evening with her lover, Alex. She experienced a fleeting sense of guilt, but it dissipated quickly. Looking around the dark, quiet house, she contemplated the possibility of this being her fate if Jack decided to end their marriage. After a moment of reflection, she laughed and headed upstairs. She reasoned that if Jack were to take action, he would have done so by now. She had been seeing Alex for 8 months, and Jack had acquiesced to her excuses. Initially, she only visited him 1 or 2 days a week, but lately, she had been at his house for up to 4 evenings a week. In addition, Fridays were included while providing justifications for Jack. Jack never questioned her, despite being aware of her actions. He did not challenge her when she lied and stated that she had attended a weekend conference in New York a month or so ago. The truth was that she had spent that weekend with Alex in New York. Alex was the one who had a conference to attend, she was his +1 for the weekend. They were now planning to spend a whole week on a cruise together. The only remaining issue was to come up with a reason that Jack would believe. Once upstairs, she removed her clothes and entered the shower. She wanted to be as fresh as possible for her husband when he returned with the children. She wanted to be clean for Jack, just in case he wanted to make out. He hadn't made any advances toward her lately, so she didn't expect him to tonight. Nevertheless, she thought, one never knows. She slid under the covers. She fell asleep quickly the following morning and awoke expecting to see her husband next to her. However, he was not there, and his side of the bed did not appear to have been disturbed. She listened intently but did not hear anything else in the house. Perhaps they were outside, she thought. She got up, threw on a robe, and looked around the house. She looked inside the house but could find no evidence of their presence. She looked outside, thinking that perhaps they were engaged in yard work, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. She then proceeded to call out for them, but received no response. She then proceeded to search the garage, but Jack's truck was still gone. After returning upstairs, she checked the closet and discovered that Jack's personal items, including his clothes and hygiene products, were missing. She then proceeded to search the children's bedrooms and discovered that their belongings were also missing. At this point, she began to suspect that he might have finally left. She then pulled out her phone and attempted to call Jack, but received a message stating that the number she had called was no longer in service. She proceeded to contact Jack's parents, who reside in Southern California, in the hope that they might be able to provide some insight into the situation. When Jack's mother answered the phone, she inquired as to whether she had heard from Jack or the children recently. The response was negative. Jack's mother then inquired as to the well-being of Jolly, to which Jolly replied that she had returned home. Jack and the children were absent from their residence late last night. I surmised that he had taken them out to dinner, but they did not return home. I attempted to contact Jack, but I received a message indicating that his telephone number is no longer in service. Lorraine suggested that I might wish to notify the police and report them as missing. I will do so. At the conclusion of the telephone conversation, she proceeded to the kitchen to prepare a cup of coffee. It was at this moment that she observed the envelope, situated adjacent to the coffee pot. Jack's ring was positioned on top of the envelope. Overcome with trepidation, she opened the envelope and extracted a sheet of paper, which proved to be a typed note from Jack. She then sat down with her coffee. She proceeded to consume a cup of coffee while perusing the note. The missive commenced with the salutation, Jolly, and its opening line was, "In case you haven't figured it out yet, I'm gone." The author then proceeded to inform the recipient that the children were in his company and were unharmed. The author then proceeded to state that it was evident that the recipient had forgotten that Friday was the 15th anniversary of their wedding. The author then proceeded to state that the recipient had chosen to spend the anniversary with Alex Freeman rather than with him. I am not at all surprised. This is not the first occasion on which you have failed to attend an important family event. Last month, for instance, you apparently forgot that it was Jason's 13th birthday. I informed him that you were preoccupied with work and unable to leave. I am aware that you were, in fact, in Freeman's bed. You did the same thing with Allison's birthday. The birthday of the aforementioned child occurred 3 months ago, and the unfortunate incident involving the child's injury while playing football at school 2 months ago was also recalled. It was confirmed that the father was not present to provide care for the child because he was with his partner, Freeman. The school attempted to contact the father to inform him of the situation but was told that he was in a meeting. The father's partner was subsequently informed of this information. I was aware that you and Freeman were engaging in sexual intercourse at the Hilton that afternoon. I have been cognizant of your ongoing extramarital relationship with Freeman for some time, and the children are also aware of it. I am also aware of the conference you attended in New York and the cruise you and Freeman planned. Regarding the upcoming trip you plan to take later this year, I advise you not to lie to me about it. It is evident that you have chosen to prioritize your relationship with Freeman over your responsibilities as a wife and mother. I have decided to take matters into my own hands. I had hoped you would have ended your relationship with Freeman and returned to being my wife and the mother of our children. It is possible that we could have resolved our differences, but you elected not to do so. You have been absent for the past several months, so I have decided to take action. I am leaving you and the children, as I do not believe you are concerned about their well-being. You will be served with divorce papers at some point. In addition, I will be filing a lawsuit against Alex for alienation of affection, as this is a legal action permitted in this jurisdiction. The potential financial outcome may be minimal, if any, but the underlying principle is of paramount importance. It is my intention to demonstrate to the children that poor decision-making has consequences, particularly in light of your decision to prioritize your romantic relationship over your marital obligations. I am requesting custody of the children and the right to make decisions regarding their upbringing. Given your financial stability, I am also asking that you provide financial support. I am not seeking to restrict your access to the children, although I am requesting that no spousal report be awarded. You will be required to obtain a passport and pay for your own travel. I have accepted a promotion and will be assuming leadership of our company's operations in Australia for at least the next 5 years. I had hoped to share this positive development with you, but as is often the case, you chose to spend your evenings with Freeman. Furthermore, I was unable to celebrate my promotion with you. You will also find in my top desk drawer an assigned quit-claim deed. I am leaving you with the house, and I have left you with one of our accounts. I have taken my name off everything, it is now in your possession. If you decide to contest the divorce, you may do so. The quit-claim deed will enable you to become an internet sensation. It contains some rather explicit pictures of you and Freeman together. These are just a few of the many hours of video that were taken of the two of you. I would like to say that the last 15 years have been wonderful. The preceding 13 years or so were relatively positive. I endeavored to provide you with the utmost love and affection, yet it became evident that this was not sufficient for you. In recent times, you have gradually distanced yourself from me and have consistently rejected my attempts to reconcile. You may have observed a notable absence of physical intimacy between us. The reality is that the mere prospect of engaging in sexual intercourse with you, even as a secondary partner, was repugnant to me. I believe you assumed I was acquiescent to your actions because I never attempted to physically prevent you. You are aware that I would never resort to such an extreme measure. I am not inclined to engage in physical intimacy or to issue directives. I am simply not wired that way. However, the truth is that you have caused me significant emotional distress, and I will never be able to move on from this. You should be aware that throughout the duration of our relationship, I have never once considered engaging in infidelity. I was always there for you, and the children were my primary concern, above all else. In contrast, you have been absent from our lives for the past 8 months. It is now we who are gone. I hope that your actions were justified. Do not attempt to contact me or the children. I will allow them to contact you if they choose, but I must caution you that they are not. She was currently experiencing a high level of satisfaction with him. Should he have any comments to share, he was encouraged to do so via her attorney, whose contact details were provided in the envelope. "Goodbye, Jolly," the letter concluded. It was signed simply, Jack, with tears in her eyes. Jolly folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope. She then removed another item from the envelope. She then placed the card for Jack's attorney on the table and resolved to contact him on Monday. She proceeded to call Al on her cell phone, and he answered on the second ring. Al proceeded to contradict Alex's assertion that he had been aware that Jack was complicit in the situation. He stated that he had believed that Jack was not in agreement with Alex's actions. She was aware of this, yet he never attempted to impede her actions. Now, they have all departed, leaving her in a state of uncertainty. She inquired as to whether he would like her to visit him. He requested that she do so, and she pleaded with him to do so. Alex arrived at the residence, unaware of the man who had parked his vehicle just down the street, in an inconspicuous sedan. Jack terminated the call from his mother, expressing his gratitude. "You're welcome, son," she said, giving him a hug. "I ask that you call me when you arrive in Melbourne." "I will," he replied, and the children gave their grandmother one last hug. The three of them proceeded to the airport. This marked the beginning of a new adventure for Jack. It was the end of a 15-year chapter in his life. He was experiencing a year-long chapter in his life. Part of him missed Jolly, but another part of him was glad to be away from her. She had been unfaithful to him for 8 months with Freeman, and now the relationship was over. It was time to begin a new chapter. As promised, Jolly was served divorce papers at work the following Monday. The process server made sure to announce that she was being served divorce papers on the grounds of adultery and neglect. Jolly felt her face burn with embarrassment as her co-workers looked on. The workers observed as Alex was served with a lawsuit for alienation of affection. Jolly reached out to Jack's attorney, who advised her to either sign the papers or retain her own legal counsel. She consulted with several attorneys but was informed that Jack's proposal was as fair as could be expected under the circumstances. She signed the papers and returned them to Jack's attorney. Meanwhile, Jack had relocated to his new condominium in Melbourne, and the children adapted to their new environment with time. Jack read the email from his lawyer with interest. He was gratified to learn that Jolly had signed the papers, but he was disconcerted by her decision to relocate Alex to his former residence. Nevertheless, he recognized that this was merely a matter of time before it occurred. The divorce was granted expeditiously, as Jolly did not contest it. The court ordered her to pay a modest amount of child support, which she duly remitted. Jack was not in need of additional funds, so he allocated the payment to a college fund for the children. Freeman reached a settlement with Jack's attorney through the alternative dispute resolution process. Money was also placed in a college fund for the children over the next couple of years. Jolly sent Christmas and birthday cards to the children, along with a small letter to each of them. Jack learned that she had sold the house and married Alice, who ended up cheating on her after doing a search on the internet. Jack learned that the woman Alex was seeing was married and her husband did not take kindly to being cheated. As a result, both Alex and the woman ended up with a .45 caliber slug in there. The couple was incarcerated. Jack was unsurprised, citing the adage, "Once a cheater, always a cheater." Jolly repeatedly pledged to reunite with the children, yet she never materialized. Jack was unsurprised and observed that the children eventually dismissed her promises as mere illusions. Over time, the correspondence diminished in frequency and eventually ceased. In contrast, Jack had formed a relationship with Chloe, a blonde beauty originally from Adelaide who had relocated to Melbourne 5 years prior. After her husband left her for another woman, the two of them dated for nearly a year before he proposed marriage. "Are you certain about this, Jack?" she inquired. "You know, I am unable to have children, and that is what caused my first husband to leave." "Your first husband was an unwise individual." "I have never been more certain about anything in my life," he replied. "I am deeply in love with you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you." "I am deeply in love with you as well, Jack," she said. "However, what about your?" The next day, Jack and Chloe sat down with the children in his condominium. Jack began by stating, "I have fallen in love with Chloe and have proposed marriage to her." He then inquired, "What are your thoughts on this matter? As your stepmother, will you accept her?" Allison inquired, causing Chloe to recoil in shock. Jack regarded his daughter, taken aback, and inquired, why not? He then asked, because Dad Jason said we don't want her to be our stepmother. We want her to be our mom. Chloe then asked, what do you want? I want to be your mother, but what about your birth mother? She has not been involved in your lives for a long time. Allison said. If you want to marry Dad, you will have to be our mother. Are you willing to do that? Chloe looked at Jack, shocked. Then she looked back at the child and embraced them. I would love to be your mother, she said, tears falling down her face. A couple of months later, Jack and Chloe were married in a small outdoor ceremony. Allison stood as Chloe's maid of honor, and Jason was Jack's best man. At the end of 5 years, they all returned to the United States for a brief visit. Jason had been accepted to the Air Force Academy, so they elected to take him there after a brief stop in Southern California, where Jack introduced Chloe to his parents. They then flew to Denver, where Jack was scheduled to meet with his superior and the board of directors before returning to Australia. After checking into the hotel, they proceeded to the elevator, but halted when Jack heard a familiar voice. Jack, is that you? The woman inquired. Jack looked and saw his former spouse. His wife, Jolly, was approaching them. She appeared to have aged significantly since he last saw her. She was thin, and her hair showed streaks of gray. Jolly, he said. Yes, it's me, she replied. Who are these people? Aren't you going to introduce me? Jack inquired as to whether he recognized his own children. He was referring to those he had not seen in the previous couple of years. Jolly was visibly shocked and expressed her disbelief at Jack's apparent growth and physical well-being. She then directed her attention to Chloe. Jack was overcome with emotion and could not help but smile. He proceeded to introduce Chloe as their mother. Mom, Jason stated, his voice exhibiting a slight Australian accent. Her name is Chloe Allison. I'm your mother, Jolly interjected, stepping back in shock. No, Jolly, Jason replied. You gave birth to us, but you ceased being our mother a long time ago, around the same time. You ceased to be your husband's wife. Jolly appeared to be on the verge of collapse, and an older man in a suit approached her. Jolly, are you all right? He inquired. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. The man steadied her and helped her sit down, then turned his attention to Jack, Chloe, and the children. Who are you? He demanded. The man inquired as to the nature of their interaction with the woman. Jack replied that they had merely reminded her of what she had once possessed but subsequently discarded. He then asked the man, who he identified as Carl Williams, to extend his hand. Jack then inquired as to the nature of the man's relationship with Jolly, who he referred to as his fiancée. Her first husband, Carl, inquired, yes. Jack replied, I see. Carl then asked, did Jolly tell you about me and the children? Jack responded in the affirmative, and Carl answered, yes, and it only cost her entire family. Jack then said, like I said, good luck to you. You'll need it. I require your attention for a moment, if you would be so kind. I will catch up with you later, my friend. Jack then proceeded to leave the room, leaving Chloe and the children behind. Jolly, overcome with emotion, was left alone in the space. That was your first wife, wasn't it, Chloe? Jack inquired as he ascended the stairs. Yes, she replied. And if I may be so bold, would say that you definitely traded her up. I did, Jolly responded, her eyes brimming with tears. And don't you forget it. What is your opinion of OP? We appreciate your interest in our stories, in which revenge is served hot. To ensure your next chef remains loyal, we kindly request that you consider subscribing to our channel. Tune in to the next episode to satisfy your appetite for revenge. If you are below the age of 18, we advise you to refrain from viewing. The heart is a vital organ that plays a crucial role in the functioning of the human body.